This all happened around 10 years ago when I was 19. Around the holidays, I found out my then boyfriend, Kevin, was cheating on me with my older sister, Jen. I was beyond devastated because Jen and I were really close, and she was my role model. Not only that, but Kevin was honestly my first big love, so it was really crushing. Everything was made so much worse when my parents sided with Jen. She had always been a bit of a golden child, but my parents had never shown their favoritism to this extent. They kept telling me that these things happen, but family always forgives, and crap like that. It made me cry a lot, and I kept telling them I couldn't forgive them. My dad told me to stop being so dramatic. My mom said I was a disappointment because she raised me better. Jen just said she was sorry, but she and Kevin really loved each other, and they never meant to hurt me. I honestly just felt so alone and depressed and worthless. I was like a zombie for months. I mostly just slept and refused to talk to my sister. My parents kept telling me to move on because, even if it hurt, Jen was still my sister, and she was more important than some guy. After that, I couldn't live with my parents anymore. Their betrayal and lack of support was too much to bear. I packed my bags and moved in with my grandparents, who were furious about my sister's and parents' behavior. They welcomed me with open arms and gave me the love and support I desperately needed during that dark time. Living with my grandparents was a healing experience. They stood by me, offering the stability and warmth that my own parents had denied me. With their encouragement, I focused on my studies and managed to get into a good college. It was there that I met John, a kind and understanding guy who became my rock. We dated throughout college and eventually got married, making a conscious decision to keep our distance from my parents and sister. Years went by, and I maintained a relatively peaceful and fulfilling life with John. We were building our future, still in touch with my grandparents, who were thrilled with how well I was doing. Unfortunately, as time went on, my grandparents' health began to decline. First, my grandfather passed away, and a couple of years later, my grandmother followed him. After my grandmother's passing, their will was read. To my shock, I was left with all their inheritance. My grandparents had decided to leave everything to me, perhaps understanding the tumultuous relationship I had with my parents and sister. When my parents and Jen found out, they were furious. They were relentless, constantly bombarding me with phone calls, texts, and emails. They demanded that I share the inheritance with Jen, who was now a struggling single mother. They painted a picture of a desperate situation. Jen and my ex separated after he caught her cheating. Now Jen was pregnant by a deadbeat guy who had run off, leaving her with no support. She was living with our parents, relying on their limited resources. The emotional manipulation was intense. My parents accused me of being heartless and selfish. They reminded me that Jen was my sister, that family should come first, and that I had an obligation to help her out in her time of need. They threatened to sue me, claiming that I had no right to keep all the inheritance to myself. My father had even said he would contest the will, arguing that it was unfair and that my grandparents were not of sound mind when they made their decision. I was overwhelmed and stressed, but I knew I had to stand my ground. The betrayal I had experienced from them still stung, and I knew I couldn't let them push me into giving up what my grandparents had intended for me. After several weeks of relentless pressure, I decided it was time to confront them face to face and put an end to this once and for all. I made the trip to my parents' house. When I arrived, my parents and Jen were there, waiting expectantly. I could see the anger and desperation in their eyes. I took a deep breath and calmly told them that their constant harassment needed to stop immediately. "I understand that you're in a difficult situation," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "But the inheritance was left to me by our grandparents for a reason. They saw what I went through, and they wanted to ensure my future. I'm not going to share it, and you need to respect that." My father stood up, his face red with anger. "You think you can just waltz in here and deny your own family? We're going to sue you for what's rightfully ours." I took another deep breath and delivered the news that I knew would change everything. "You might want to reconsider that," I said, "because the house you're living in right now, it belonged to Grandpa and Grandma, and now it's mine." There was a stunned silence. My mother looked like she had been slapped. Jen's eyes widened, and she gasped. My father, however, tried to maintain his defiant stance. "You're lying," he spat. "This house has been in the family for years. It's ours." Well, I know my father knows that the house belonged to my grandparents, but he just tried to play dumb. I pulled out the legal documents I had brought with me, showing them the deed and the will. "It's all right here. The house legally belongs to me now. So here's the deal. You leave me alone, and I'll let you stay. But if you continue to harass me, I will have no choice but to evict you." The room was filled with a tense, heavy silence. My mother finally spoke, her voice trembling. "You can't do this to us. We're your parents. Jen is your sister." "I didn't do this," I replied, my voice firm. "You did, by betraying me, by siding with Jen, and by trying to take away what my grandparents left me. I've made my decision. Respect it, or face the consequences." Jen broke down in tears. My father looked defeated, and my mother simply stared at the documents, unable to speak. I stood my ground, feeling a mix of sadness and resolve. This was not how I wanted things to be, but I had to protect myself and honor my grandparents' wishes. I left the house that day, knowing that things would never be the same, but I also knew that I had done the right thing. My parents and sister have since backed off, realizing that I was serious about my ultimatum. I finally have the peace and respect that I deserved all along. When I was 17, I was kicked out of university because of illegal substances. My parents almost disowned me. I was fined and overall lost a lot of money, friends, dignity, etc. It was a really crap time in my life, and I didn't have much left. My mom and stepdad told me that if I got a well-paying job and worked for a year, they would contribute towards me moving out their house. I found a job in an office that was vaguely related to my preferred field. It was basically just making cups of tea, printing, and sending emails for people. I was just an assistant, but I hoped it would be the first step into getting into the actual job I wanted to do, by networking and learning things from the environment I was in. After a year, my parents helped me to move out, mostly so they could get me out of their hair, and I moved closer to work. I concentrated all my life on just working. I still didn't have many friends, couldn't talk to my family, etc. So concentrating on work seemed like the best and only thing I could do. Over the year that I worked there, I had gained some respect in the office and was starting to become good friends with a few of my colleagues. After the first year, I started to get given more responsibilities, and I was actually allowed to give some input on some of the projects. My boss, he wasn't at the top, but he was above me, Jeremy, seemed to like me and trust my opinion, and he sometimes gave me really good opportunities to gain experience and get my name out there. I met some well-respected and influential people within my field, and I was so happy and grateful to Jeremy. He took me under his wing. After about 18 months of working there, the top boss got fired for some reason, and Jeremy took his place. He was basically at the top of the ladder within our office, and he kind of took me along with him. I was given a pay raise, but my title never changed, so nothing was really official. Eventually, I met his son at an office party, and we really clicked. I spoke to him more a lot of the evening, and we even exchanged numbers. I was worried Jeremy would be weirded out, but he was really encouraging and said that we should all have dinner together one time. A couple of months later, Jeremy went to work abroad for 2 months on a project. I felt really lost without him, to be honest. He was almost like a father figure to me, and he guided me at work to be successful. I spoke to his son, Matthew, about it because obviously Matthew was going to miss him too. Matthew has a physical disorder that means he's in a wheelchair, and I know he relies on his father for a lot. There's a lot of things he can't physically do, and it stops him from developing relationships because he's not confident and he struggles to meet people. Over a month, we talked on the phone a lot, and at the work Christmas do, I invited him to come along. I got very drunk and we ended up kissing a lot. I was terrified I'd be fired or worse, but the next day, Jeremy called me and he was really happy about it. He said that Matthew was really happy too, and that he hoped we'd continue a relationship. We did continue to talk, but we didn't meet again because I was just trying to concentrate on myself. I was working, volunteering, going to the gym. When Jeremy came back from being abroad, the first thing he did was call me into the office and ask how it had been going with Matthew, and I just told him that we'd been talking, but I'd been busy. Jeremy told me he had a surprise for me, and he took out a new contract for me that included a pay raise and more responsibilities that I wanted. Before I signed it, he made a joke about how he would only let me have it if I went on a date with Matthew that weekend. I thought he was just joking, and my weekend was free, so I laughed and said, "Yeah, sure," and signed the contract. I arranged to meet Matthew that weekend, and we had a date that went pretty well. He's a really sweet, funny, kind person, and I'm really attracted to him. We have a lot in common, and I enjoy his company. He makes me feel comfortable, but he also keeps me on my toes. We went on a few more dates, and I was really starting to fall for him. We even spent my birthday together and slept together, and I am still very invested in our relationship. We talk every day, and we see each other at least twice a week. Matthew doesn't talk about his feelings a whole lot, so we haven't officially gotten any further. We're not boyfriend and girlfriend, and we've never spoken about our feelings. Jeremy has hinted a few times that I should ask to make it official, but I never talk to him about it because I find it weird. Then, a few days ago, he came to my house to talk about a big project and a big company that's going to make us huge if it goes well. He offered me the chance to have an official role in the project with a big bonus and a big opportunity to make a name for myself, on the condition that I make it official with Matthew. I'm totally and completely freaked out. I went very quiet, and Jeremy said he'd leave me to think about it. He left all the documents at my house about the project, with a lot of pound signs on it, and a lot of big influential names. Basically, to say to me, here's what you could have if you accept my bribe. I do like Matthew, and I actually was thinking recently that if Matthew asked me to make it official, I would say yes. But not like this. I don't want it to be like this. I didn't see Jeremy at work yesterday, and I haven't spoken to him. I've been talking to Matthew, but I've just pretended like nothing's happened. I don't think he knows about it. I don't know what to do. I am falling for Matthew, and I'm scared to lose him and duck it up. I love my job, and I'm scared of getting fired or missing out on an amazing opportunity. I value my self-respect and morals, and I will not lower myself in any way, shape, or form. I deserve to be successful, and I've worked so hard, and I want it to be fair. What the duck do I do? What do I tell Matthew? What do I tell Jeremy? I disagree with the comment saying to go to HR, or switch supervisors, or to be cold to Jeremy at all. It seems like Jeremy thinks you are amazing and is worried that his son may never find someone because of his condition. I'm sure he has good intentions, however cruel his actions may be. It seems like you have been very close to Jeremy, so I think you should arrange a meeting with him to explain the situation. You should explain that you actually truly like Matthew as a person and want to be with him, completely separate from the bribes Jeremy has offered. He may not realize this because you accepted the other bribes, so setting him straight would be good. He may realize that his son doesn't need his help to find a girlfriend. Explain that you are uncomfortable with the bribes he has offered and won't be accepting. Go on to tell him that you feel you have worked hard at your job and deserve the opportunities, separate from your relationship with Matthew. Explain that you wish to keep talk of Matthew outside of the workplace because you want to keep it professional. You need to talk to Matthew and tell him this. Otherwise, he's going to end up thinking you pity dated him because his dad asked you to, and you wanted to keep moving up in the business. Then, tell Jeremy your thoughts on the business venture, but tell them they have to be completely separate from Matthew. That even though that is his son, it is your private life, and the thought of being bought is upsetting. I, 28 male, am supposed to be best man at my best friend's wedding, 28 male. My best friend has been dating his now fiance, 26 female, future wife, for 5 years, and they're getting married in October. My girlfriend, 27 female, and I have been dating since high school, almost 12 years. We are also expecting a child together, and she's due in January. My girlfriend and I are not wedding people, and we've made the choice to not get married, but we have a cohabitation agreement. Note that my girlfriend and I are fully committed to each other, and our choice to stay unmarried isn't because we don't love each other. We just don't like it. The couple is allowing everyone a +1 at the wedding, but for the bridal party, she only allows married couples to the head table. Now, all the bridesmaids except 2 are married, while all the groomsmen except 1 are either single or unmarried relationships. The maid of honor is engaged and not married, yet she's allowed a +1 in the head table. When I assumed my girlfriend would be an exception to that rule, since we live together and also expect a child, the bride immediately shut me down and said no exceptions, married couples only. I told her it's not fair since she made an exception for her maid of honor, who's her cousin. Her words to me were, "No ring, no bring." She said she accepts our choice to stay unmarried, but that choice has consequences, and as long as we're not married, then we're not committed. She said she doesn't want a nobody with no ring on the head table. I reminded her she's the mother of my future child, my partner of 10 years, and I could not disrespect her. She said she doesn't care. Rules are rules. Note: most of the married couples of the bridal party have been together for less than 5 years. Yet my 12-year-old relationship is called unimportant. I told the couple that I respect their decision of the married-only rule, but I can't disrespect my girlfriend and put her below their wedding and have her importance downplayed. And that while I respect their wedding rules, I still prioritize my girlfriend's feelings and respect like any decent partner would. So I decided to step down from the best man and let them pick someone who could meet their needs for their wedding. The bride just cussed me off and left the room saying I'm selfish for not prioritizing the wedding over some girl. My BFF got mad at me because he feels I ruined his wedding day. I tried to talk to him calmly about it and explain my feelings better, but he wouldn't listen. So please, I need advice on how to approach my BFF and make things right. I don't want him to feel like I disappointed him on purpose and possibly ruin our friendship because of that. Any advice is appreciated. Edit: I want to clarify why I thought I did something wrong. First of all, the fact that my BFF is mad at me. First and main reason. Secondly, my mother and sister said I was unreasonable and should apologize for trying to interfere with their wedding rules like that, and that it's a common rule to only allow married couples in the head table, which made me be in the wrong and how I needed to make it up to my BFF somehow. You definitely did the right thing. While she's entitled to set whatever rules she wants for her wedding, however daft they may be, so are you entitled to decline to be a part of them. Her words about your partner of 12 years being just some girl must have been incredibly hurtful. It's 2021. Millions of people manage just fine in long-term relationships without needing to get married. Hell, most of my friends are in long-term relationships but unmarried, and most of those relationships have lasted longer than those of my married friends. The bride sounds like a total B. At this moment in time, she is an unmarried woman. So is her relationship worth less than a couple who are married? You're in a committed relationship with the mother of your unborn child, and it is absolutely right that you prioritize her. If it were me, I'd stick to my guns. If your best friend isn't capable of understanding why you prioritize your partner, then is he really worthy of being your best friend? Weddings are stressful, sure, but not an excuse to act unreasonably and treat friends like crap. My fiance and I are getting married in 2 months, and we recently mailed out all of the invitations. We have been dating each other for just over a year before getting engaged. He is the absolute love of my life, and I couldn't have asked for a better life partner. Yesterday, during a conversation about who to pick as groomsmen, he hesitated about one person in his guest list. When I asked why, he mentioned that he had previously slept with the person's now wife and mother to their child, and that it didn't go very well. When I pressed further, he mentioned that he jumped around a lot in college, and this presumably was with the woman who is now his friend's wife. All of them went to the same undergrad. This surprised and hurt me because it was the first time that I had heard about his jumping around and that he had slept with this woman in question. I then asked how many women has he been involved with in our guest list. He said 2 initially, then remembered a third one which was a drunken hookup in his first month in college. He also apologized and said that he is disgusting by how he used to be before and has taken a lot of steps to improve himself, which I believe to be true. It isn't the sleeping around or hooking up that bothers me. It's the fact that I had to ask him for those details instead of him telling me himself. I didn't invite anyone I was even remotely romantically involved with because this is our wedding, our sacred day. And then I come to know that he has been involved with 3 women who've already been invited. They are all good friends of his, and had he told me before inviting them, I don't think I would have minded it as much, even if I wasn't happy about it. I don't plan on asking my fiance to uninvite them or anything of that sort, but I do feel low on enthusiasm. My fiance and I never had the count talk because we're all grown-up adults, but sometimes I wonder what else will I find if I really asked. I also understand that these may be temporary emotions that I'm feeling right now, given the novelty of the information, and will settle down as time passes. I wanted to reach out and see if anyone has felt something similar, and if they have any words of advice or support for me. Edit. 1. When I say we didn't have the count talk, I meant we've talked about each other's histories, and I had a fair idea that he had been with many more partners than I, but never made a list of exactly how many people were there and who they were. I mean this compassionately. Y'all need to tap the brakes. It sounds like the two of you don't know each other that well. It's less expensive to wait another year or two for marriage, to work through other potential issues, than it is to pay for a wedding, possibly suffer another negative surprise, go to marriage counseling, and worst case, divorce. I'm not saying your relationship is doomed. What I am saying is that it is unwise to rush into marriage when you don't even have a clear image of your fiance's past, no matter how much of a cool girl you are. This was so wrong of him to do. Also, he should have told you who he invited. He hasn't been honest by not telling you, not respected you. I would have just uninvited them. It's your day. I just don't get how you didn't discuss who you were inviting, in details, before sending the invites. I don't think your man acted respectfully at all. Did he hide, mitigate that he had slept with them on purpose? Because then he actually knew that it was a disrespectful thing to do.